I want you to think back when you were 21 years old. You were probably with your friends talking about all the great plans for your life, and you genuinely believed that by the time you hit 30, you would be a multimillionaire with financial freedom and have everything figured out in your life. And here we are in our 30s and 40s, well into our careers, and we still haven't reached financial freedom. So here are the 7 steps for you to reach financial freedom in your 30s and 40s. I'm Santiago. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm going to walk you through these 7 steps and give you examples of how I've used this process in my own life. So here we have a drawing of the 7-step process, and this drawing was inspired by the famous hedge fund investor Ray Dalio that used a similar process to getting what he wanted out of life. And step 1 is understanding our personal and financial circumstances. So in your 30s and 40s, these are what I call your winning years. This is where you're set up for success because your earnings potential is going to be much higher than in your 20s when you first started your career, and you have plenty of time to let compounding work for you. So it's important that we make the most of these years. And if you're here watching this video right now, I'm assuming that you do want to make the most out of these years. Now, understanding your personal financial circumstances is taking an honest assessment about where you are right now. On this channel, if you've watched my videos, you know I'm not about fluff. I'm not about hyping people up. I'm about getting down to real results that lead to real outcomes. Now, every one of us is dealt a different set of cards. We're all dealt different cards on the poker table, and we need to be honest about what our hand is and how we can make the most of it. Some of you right now watching this video might have a career where there's a lot of growth potential left. Some of you might be watching this and have a career where you've hit a ceiling and you know you've hit that ceiling. I was in that exact situation. And this honest assessment changes how we approach reaching financial freedom because we need to know where the start line is. I practice what I've preached. I've done all of this myself, so that's how I know that this works. At the time, I was working in a field that I wasn't passionate about. And when I sat down and took an honest assessment about my circumstance, one of the things that I realized is that my current career had a ceiling, and that if I wanted to reach financial freedom and move forward and get to the life that I wanted to live, then I needed to leave that career because it had a ceiling, or it was going to take me way longer than I was willing to accept to reach financial freedom. So sit down and take an honest assessment about your current personal financial circumstances and where you are. Now that you've identified your personal circumstances, step 2 is then selecting the goals and deciding where you want to go. What is the end destination? Stephen Covey once said, start with the end in mind. You got to know where you want to go. What are we shooting for? What does financial freedom exactly mean to you? This is different for everybody. And this matters a lot because most people realize that their portfolio has to serve some type of purpose, or it gets very mundane and monotonous just doing the same thing over again. Oh, I invest every 2 weeks in my 401k. Like, we need to have some type of purpose, some type of goal, right? So what do you want your financial freedom to look like? Do you want to live abroad? Do you want to start a business? Do you want to leave a career that you feel that you've outgrown? These are all destinations that we have to decide for ourselves. And each one of these destinations requires us to have a completely different set of tools to get there. In my case, when I was walking through this exercise, my goal was to get out of a career that I felt that I had reached a ceiling, and I wanted to work doing something that I was passionate about that had unlimited income potential, because I felt like if I was doing something that I was passionate about and it had unlimited income potential at the same time, then it would be much easier to reach financial freedom and reach it much faster. So having this goal that I identified changed how I made every decision going forward. Maybe you're happy in your career and you want to save for retirement, right? That's a different set of tools, but we need to identify those goals and start working towards them. If you are having trouble identifying these goals and walking through these first 2 steps, I have built a tool that is just for you, and it's a free resource. This is called the Personal Investment Blueprint. You can find this at www.financewithsantiago.com/blueprint, and it walks you through this exact process so you have a clear picture on where you're starting from, where you want to go, and then it's going to produce you a PDF document that you can keep as a guide as you're walking through the 7-step process. I'll also leave a link in the description, and then I'll put a QR code on the screen so you can scan it if you're watching this on a TV. And also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you can get updates from the channel. Now let's continue going on to step 3. So in step 3, what we're going to do is we're going to analyze our current course and then map out what are the alternatives. So in my example, when I was working my previous career flying drones, my current course of action was I was working a job that had a limited ceiling, that if I continued to work there, I was going to max out around $180,000 a year. And while $180,000 a year is a great salary, I didn't want that to be my end destination, but that was my current course. So because of that, I needed to map out what were the potential alternatives and then what were the pros and cons, because there's a sacrifice and everything. But by charting this out, I could clearly see, okay, what is the course of action that makes the most sense to get to the destination that I've identified in step 2 in the fastest possible manner. We skip over these steps because these require us not only to be honest with ourselves, but it requires us to dig deep. And a lot of times we're afraid on what's on the other side of it because we're like, man, I'm so far away from my destination, I'm never gonna reach there. But once again, this 7-step process is gonna close that gap so you can start heading in that direction and get the freedom that you want. And step 4 is when we're gonna start developing the plan based on the alternate courses of actions. And this is where you can bring in a professional. It's not necessary, but a professional can help you, guide you on, okay, this is the alternate course that you want. What's the best way and the best investment vehicles and tools to get there? So when I laid out the alternate courses in my life, I realized, like, man, if I want to switch my careers, I need to have some money saved up on the side to back me up. So I instantly realized that I needed to start building an outside investment account that was growing and compounding at an exponential rate, and it needed to be outside of my retirement plans. You see how this is falling into place, and the dominoes are guiding us to how we can build a portfolio that leads us to freedom when we're putting this into motion. So I realized that my plan of action was to invest in assets that long-term could maximize my growth. I didn't want to be conservative because I needed that growth, and also gave me flexibility that could back me up when I decided to switch my careers. Your plan, on the other hand, could be maxing out your retirement account. Maybe you're happy in your career and you're making plenty of money for what your goals are, and your concern is retirement. Now that's a different set of plan that we need to put into place. Nonetheless, we need to decide on what the plan of action is. And if we can't decide on what the plan of action is, we need to elicit professionals that can help us get to the plan of action. Oftentimes, when we're thinking about financial freedom, we think that we have to find some needle in a haystack or some magical stock that's just gonna fix all our problems. Well, I can tell you that there's no magical stock that's gonna land on your doorstep. And even if it did land on your doorstep, if you don't have these steps in place, then you just have money with no direction. And when that happens, bad things happen. So step number 5, after we've decided the plan that we want to go with, it's putting it on paper and making it real. There's something powerful about writing something down. When it's in your head, it's just an idea. It doesn't exist yet. When you put it on paper and commit to it, now you have to look at it and it's set in stone. Now, this doesn't have to be anything too complicated, right? Like, let's just keep things simple. It can be as simple as a document that says, here's where I am, here are my goals, here are the steps, here's the plan, that's it, right? But what this is gonna do is gonna move you from theory to accountability. That's key in building financial freedom. So once again, going back to my example, I knew that I needed to get a higher return than just investing in super conservatively or holding my money in cash. I also needed that money to be flexible. And then in the plan, I said, okay, I'm gonna start compounding this account. And also I knew I wanted to work in financial services, what I do now, surprise, surprise. So I was like, not only that, is I can start practicing investing on my own, right? Putting that plan into motion. Keeping things simple, what you can do is decide, okay, based on my plan, based on my goals, What's a good long-term target in return? Again, if you don't know how to do this, you can elicit help from a professional that can sit down with you. But to make things really easy, the long-term return of the stock market is around 9 to 10%, anywhere in there. Now, every investment carries some type of long-term return, and it also carries some type of risk that's associated with it, right? So we're always balancing, like, based on where I want to go, what's the risk to return trade-off, and is it really worth it? I knew in my circumstance that getting a 9 to 10% return with the risk that I was willing to take to change my situation and change my life, for me, it was well worth it. So I started to see the dominoes fall into place, like, okay, cool. Now, I also knew that once this plan was in motion, that life is not static. Life changes, right? Like, just because you start with one plan doesn't mean that you can't go back and change the plan as your goals change in your life. This is just giving us our current North Star. Now, notice up until this point, we actually haven't talked about any direct stocks or any type of specific accounts like an IRA or a brokerage account. And that's intentional, right? Because we need to build the foundation of the house. When we look at the drawing, like, this is a journey, and we have to have good steps in place that then determine how we're going to implement this. And that's exactly what step 6 is. It's the implementation. So now we go from the paper plan to the actual action. What accounts do we need? What type of investments are best suited for us so that we can implement this along with our risk tolerance and our risk return trade-off? Now, this is a step that a lot of people get stuck at because they're afraid of making a mistake. And I will promise you, your plan's gonna change. A lot of times you're gonna make some mistakes. You're gonna learn from those mistakes, and that's fine as long as we're heading towards our North Star, right? Like, this is a process. Now, if you don't know where to start or you're confused, one of the things that you can do after you use the personal investment blueprint that I've linked in the description is that you can go on Perplexity Finance. I always mention Perplexity Finance in a lot of my videos. Is really good at giving you great information specifically when it comes to finance. And you can simply ask it, what type of investments will help me reach these goals, the goals that you've outlined in the personal investment blueprint? Or you can ask it, what type of portfolio structure is best suited for me on my current situation in this course that I'm heading down? Now, I'm not suggesting that you blindly take financial advice from AI, but what I am suggesting is that you can use this tool to get a framework of implementation, and then you can take that framework and get feedback from a professional, or you can take it upon yourself to learn, make mistakes, refine that plan. But you need a certain framework. And what AI is going to do is present you with potential ideas. And in Perplexity Finance's case, you can ask it for the academic research behind it, right? Always, you can either choose to do it yourself or you can get a professional, right? If you choose to do it yourself, you read the academic research and then implement it yourself. And then you live with the fact that, hey, I'm going to take the risk on learning this on my own. Nonetheless, regardless of what you decide to do, step 6 is about implementing the actual plan that you've outlined based on what you've done in the first 5 steps. Now, it may tell you that you need to focus on stocks to get a higher long-term return. It may tell you that you're better off being conservative and investing in bonds, but you can't even get to that point of knowing these tools and getting feedback if you first haven't laid those first initial 5 steps to get the plan down. Once I had my plan written down, one of the first things that I did is implementing and committing to saving 10% of my net income after my 401k was done in a personal investment account that was outside of retirement. Remember, I told you in my case, when I wanted that backstop to switch careers, I knew that 1, I needed to get a higher return than what I could get in bonds. And then 2, I knew that I needed that account to be flexible. So the thing about it is, if you guys don't understand this about like IRAs, 401ks, and retirement plans, is that they're great. They give you tax benefits and they're good for long-term investing. But if you take it early, you're going to inherit a 10% penalty, right? So it's going to set you back 10% just for using the money. And I knew in my case, based on writing the goals down, I was like, well, I want to switch careers. I want to do other things one day. So I needed that flexibility. Once again, implementing the plan that makes sense for for what I wanted for my original goals. Do this for yourself as well. Find out what your true goals are, find out what your destination is, research the tools, and then implement those tools so that you can begin moving the needle towards the direction that you're trying to go. And our final step on our financial freedom journey is step 7. That's monitoring your progress and updating the plan. Because here's the reality, your life will change. I promise it. Your circumstances are going to change, your goals are going to shift, and they should shift. You shouldn't have the same goals at 30 when you turn 40. That's 10 years. You should be growing and processing information differently and then adjusting as you go along. This process, this 7-step process, is not something that you do once and put it in a drawer. You're going to revisit this. I recommend revisiting this at least once a year and then refining it as your mind adjusts, as you get more experience, as your goals adjust. And then you check whether your current actions are still moving you towards your goals. But if you think back to everything that we discussed today, going back to always assessing, like, one, what are my goals? Have my goals changed? But what's the current course and what are the alternate courses, so that you keep doing this loop and refining it. And if you repeat these steps consistently over your 30s and 40s, when you're maximizing your earning income, you are going to be building with intentionality. And building with intentionality is what leads you to a specific destination, and that's what true financial freedom is going to a specific destination with intentionality and having the proper finances to support that lifestyle. Financial freedom is less about what you buy and more about having a process for making decisions. This is consistent across all financial literacy. All financial advice is about understanding the process that leads to good decisions over about just picking random stocks and chasing random outcomes that don't lead to true results that move you towards success. So if you have not completed the personal investment blueprint yet, visit my website. This will be your next move. It's going to walk you through the first 2 steps, steps 1 and 2 of this process, and give you clarity to start making financial decisions that are going to move you in the direction that you want to go. So go to www.financewithsantiago.com/blueprint or click the link that I'm going to put in the description. So now that you understand the 7-step process, if you want to understand why most of the financial advice that you are hearing now on the internet is completely useless, make sure you watch my next video that's going to be linked above.